Wait. Before we start, just want to make sure we're clear here. While this podcast talks about sobriety, mental health, and addiction, it is not meant to replace professional medical advice. Welcome to Sisters in Sobriety.
I'm Kathleen.
And I'm Sonia.
And we're ex-sisters-in-law, brought together in marriage and bonded through our sobriety journey.
Join us as we talk sobriety, addiction, and everything in between. You're in for quite a ride. And our Substack is buzzing with amazing content, from creative mocktail recipes to insightful courses and reflective exercises. There is something for everyone. Don't miss out. It's a great way to add some extra joy and depth to your journey. Check it out. Welcome back to Sisters in Sobriety. Today we have Alle Hall. She's a Seattle-based author, speaker, and writing instructor who spent 35 years in recovery from bulimia, compulsive overeating, alcoholism, and sexual anorexia. Her debut novel, As Far As You Can Go Before You Have to Come Back, has been honored 12 times, including as a finalist for the Nancy Pearl Book Award.
Alle's work focuses on the joy and creativity that can emerge from trauma recovery. Her journey is one of survival, self-discovery, and ultimately deep healing. Through her writing and speaking, she sheds light on how trauma factors into addiction and depression, the power of self-expression in recovery, and how survivors can cultivate hope and joy.
She joins us today to share her insights on addiction, trauma, relationships, and the role creativity plays in the healing process. We are so honored to have you here, Alle. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. I'm really flattered by this. This is wonderful. Yeah.
So, Alle, you've been in recovery 35 years. Can you give us an idea of what led up to that and the turning point that kind of set you on that path?
To recovery?
Yeah.
Okay, wow. Let me file back. So my primary addiction would be food, definitely. And I danced when I was young, and that didn't help because ballerinas are crazy around food. And so I got an injury. I wasn't able to dance anymore. I gained a lot of weight because I had been eating bulimically. I guess is how you'd say it. I'd been bulimic for 3 or 4 years. And when I didn't have that dance to control me, I just went haywire with the food. So I was actually I had moved to Tokyo because I wanted to travel, and I didn't have the money to just travel. So I knew you could teach English. And we call that a geographic because I had just graduated college and I did not know what to do. And so I pulled this major geographic. I went to Tokyo, and sometime in the first week there, I picked up a paper, the English language paper. And I just saw this little ad. Are you having a hard time with food? And I was like, I'm going. And I started OA right then. And I stayed in it for 3 years. And then I started to be able to address what was going on in my family with the incest. Finally, I had enough going on with abstinence. And then, so that took a long time. I mean, that was like 5 years of really doing nothing but that. And then after about 5 years of really focusing on deep codependency healing, I went to the Meadows in Arizona, which is a 12-step treatment center. And everybody there was an incest survivor. So I just felt perfectly normal. I mean, that's what was happening in the early 90s was people were going, oh, there's this link, there's this link. So I really had a very firm understanding of what is codependency, what it was going, like, what's going on right now? I'm freaking out. Right. I'm waiting for my boss to like affirm me like I'm a child and I can't affirm myself. Boundary failure. So I was really able to put that into effect. And then after about 5 years, I was freelancing as a journalist. I had a full-time job as a receptionist and I hated it, but I needed to support myself, and freelancers don't make tons of money. So I was writing a lot as a journalist, but I was not a fiction writer at all. And then one day at my terrible job, I was just filing away and I just had the whole idea go pop. Just the young woman or the girl who's being sexually abused, who decides to steal money. Money was very critical back then to me because I didn't have any. And I suddenly realized, like, I had made the choice to step away from my family. So I cut off financial support which I had been supporting myself for a long time, because I just thought once you graduate college, you're grown up now, support yourself.
Mhm.
So I didn't realize until much later how critical that is to surviving whatever trauma you've been through, if it's from your childhood. You cannot heal if you're taking money from the people who traumatized you. It's
Uh,
just not going to happen because you're not an adult. You got to be an adult in that dynamic. So, anyway, so money was just like, I'm not really oriented towards money. That's just not me, but it is necessary. So I was really focused on getting a better job and a better job. And I ended up being the sales and marketing manager for an organic tea company. And so I was doing that and really enjoying it and writing my book. And then I met the man who I ended up marrying. And then I had this kind of ideal life for a long time. Sure, there were problems, but there was nothing I couldn't handle. And I was going right along. And then having kids was very traumatizing when you're
mm,
any sort of childhood trauma survivor, but particularly
mhm,
an incest survivor. It's just very traumatizing to see yourself in that child. You just see how vulnerable you were and how people could just do anything. I mean, you can't even speak, and how much trust it took to be a baby and how that trust was violated as I grew older. So that sort of 15 years where I had two children, I was struggling still to write. I was dealing with deep depression, and my food went haywire, just haywire. It had been completely normative, I guess you could say. No one's ever normal, but I was a normal weight. I ate normally. And I was so healed that I stopped going to OA meetings.
mhm,
So that set me up. So then when I had all these feelings as a new mom, and then there's that whole identity thing around like, wait, I've always had a job and now I'm like not only a housewife, I'm not even a good housewife. I'm like I'm not good at dusting, I'm not good at cooking, and my poor family is like having pizza all the time because I burned everything. So it was really trying, very trying. And if I had had my support system set, it wouldn't have been so trying. I still had my therapist. I never let go of therapy. And I went and I did DBT. I did a
mhm.
outpatient DBT, and my therapist is still a DBT guy. And I really like DBT because I have practiced Tai Chi throughout, which is actually Taoist, not Buddhist. But it's still tapping into like this let go, let the earth hold you, breathe sort of thing. And having a Tai Chi practice really was another lifeline during that time.
Mm.
It was something I could do. I didn't do it every day when I was in the throes of being a new mom for two kids. I just didn't have the time. Or let's say I didn't make the time. And then I drank again.
Mm,
I drank. We were in Asia. We had been on a trip in Asia, and I forgot this. My whole family went to Japan, and I forgot there's alcohol in a lot of the foods. It's mirin, it's a cooking wine, but it's still there, right? And was there for a month, and those beers that my husband was drinking started just looking better and
mm,
better and better and better. And I didn't. Oh no, I did say to him, "Boy, it's getting hard not to drink those beers." And he said, "I won't have any until we go home." Wasn't that nice? And
yeah.
so he didn't, but it was in there. And I just knew that I was going to drink on the way home. And for some reason, I was seated separately from my family. And they moved me up to the business class. And the first thing I did was order a beer.
Mm,
I'm like, I mean, it had been 27 years. And
wow.
suddenly that disease was just there, just like, so words of the wise, don't do that. So I didn't go off on I had a bender that night. Oh my God. I was like physically sick for 2 days from the amount that I drank. Yeah, we got home and I just stayed up for several hours drinking. And I was pretending to unpack and answer my email and stuff like that, but that was not what was going on. And so my therapist said wonderfully, let's not get all head up about this. You've had a slip. So go back to some meetings and don't do that anymore. And that's what happened. Yeah, that's what happened. So I have been sober now for I think 7 years, 6 or 7. Yeah.
So
And
you just had that one slip, Allie, and then you went right back to meetings?
it hasn't been effortless. There have been some times
Mhm.
where out of nowhere, it's like, why don't we have a drink? This was never me. I always had food, right?
Mhm.
And I would
Wow.
always rather eat an ice cream than drink something. I think that's what saved me from being a full-blown alcoholic, was like all the patterns were there, but I would eat instead. I'd just
Mhm.
rather eat. And so when when I had that long period where I was a kind of normative weight, happy person, I didn't have the need to. I didn't feel the need to, but you're never not an alcoholic.
Mhm.
It's just always there. It's just always there. So now yeah, I'm sober. I struggle with food every day. It's still really hard. But I am back to my Tai Chi practice is solid, and I have great confidence. I have lots and lots of hope. I think that's one thing that I never gave up was hope.
Mm.
Even in the hard time of postpartum depression and everything. I knew there was a God. I knew that, as they say, I hadn't been brought this far to be dumped on my ass.
Mhm.
And I knew that if I hung in there and kept trying, I would get there. I'm not sure what get there means, but I would get to some sobriety, get to some abstinence, as long as I made the effort. The effort is what counts.
Mhm. So you've overcome, it sounds like, and worked through multiple addictions. How do these different forms of addiction intertwine, do you think, for you?
So the way I feel, and it is not a unique feeling. I learned this
Mhm.
from the basic codependency,
Mhm.
um, is that it doesn't matter what you're using. You will have your favorites, like mine is food, but if food is not there, you'll take the next one. So they're always there. An addict will use unless they're in some sort of recovery. And if you don't have one, you'll use another. And it's not really necessary then to go to 18, 12-step programs. Like, find the meeting you like, go to that
Mhm.
meeting, and understand codependency, understand what's underneath the addictions. And the primary understanding for me was really accepting the trauma in my family, that it was generational, that
Mhm.
it happened to me, that I had to deal with it. I couldn't run from it anymore. And once I started doing that and accepting the healing from that, the addictions do lighten up. They really do. But addiction will revolve between addiction, depression, and anxiety, and chronic physical pain. And I had chronic physical pain too from the time I was 16. The ballet did not help with that. And so
Mm.
that was always a driving force for me to heal that, because I didn't want to walk around. People were like, "You're just going to have physical pain." Don't I really don't like doctors who say that. People, you're just going to have pain. And you're just going to have to learn to manage it. And I'm like, no, I'm
Mm.
not going to manage pain. I'm going to deal with this. And I finally have, for 5, 6 years, through a combination of something called gyrotonic. I don't know if you know about that. It's like a little bit like Pilates. It's an exercise system, and there's a machine.
Mhm.
It's just a little more rounded in its movement. Pilates is very linear, and gyrotonic just works for me. And then I do a particular form of chiropractor work called Atlas orthogonal. And I didn't go out looking for Atlas orthogonal. I just went looking for the next. This chiropractor didn't work. This massage therapist didn't work. And I have acupuncture thrown in when I need it. If something goes on, like my jaw was really hurting the other day, so just pop a needle right in there and it opens up. So the nice thing about keeping going and getting old is that you acquire a lot of tools. So I have a lot of tools in my
Mhm.
toolbox, like, oh, right, my back is feeling, I guess I need to do some gyrotonic at home and pull that up, or practice some Tai Chi. It's very similar to Tai Chi in that it's very circular in the movement. And so, like, my knee is hurting. Let's just do 5 minutes of Tai Chi and feel if I can, like, engage some muscles and pull them up. Oh, that's not really working. I got to go see the chiropractor. So I see the chiropractor. Boop, knee back in, right? So I don't think this is codependent to say one of the major things that happen would be finding love in my life. Because if you're in a room, you're
Mm.
going to find love. It's nice to find your primary partner, which I did. But that didn't happen until I was 33. I had a long time of watching other women and men get married and being supportive and being happy for them. But there's that feeling of like, am I going to find this? But I did. And so 28 years and going strong. And then having children
Wow.
is as a
Yeah.
survivor. I mean, there's the hard part, but
Mhm.
it's amazing. It really, I don't even write about how powerful motherhood is because I can't put it into words. It's really astounding.
Mhm.
Yeah, and to be able to bring them up without trauma.
Wow.
And my kids are now 18 and
Mhm.
21, and to see them launching and they have their feelings, but they're not overwhelmed by them. And they've both worked through hard things and they've come through whole and shining,
Mhm.
just like kids are supposed to if you give them love and
That's
some good
amazing.
boundaries and at least stay out of their way as a parent.
Mhm.
I thought that a lot about my parents. Like, if you just stayed out of my way, it would have been fine. But you had to just get up all in my business and wreck everything. So there we are. This is me today.
And so I know you talked about the trauma, and I just have been learning this about myself, that I thought that trauma and trauma response was like something happens and it triggers the memory, or the memory comes up and I want to drink. But that's not how mine works. With me, it's almost like an imprint on me, right? Where I'm like hyper vigilant, or I have anxiety, and it doesn't come across like a memory. And so it's more like a fight or flight response that's just like always on. And so, and I think that's what led to my addiction. But how did your trauma factor into your addictions?
Mine started very young. I was
Mhm.
probably 5. So I don't know what it's like not to be traumatized. So I just had this ongoing
Mhm.
numbness from having to deal with being abused all the time. And there was also physical abuse and there was tons of yelling too. So it wasn't just like it was the coming into my room at night kind of thing, but there was also just this chaos, this circle of chaos that was my
Mhm.
family life. So I just numbed out and became the good girl. I was the one that got all A's. I was
Mhm.
the one that got into the good college, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was the good girl. And as long as I was able to be the good girl, I didn't really deal with it because I would hang on to that. But
Mhm.
then it just broke. I just hit the point where I couldn't do that anymore. And that's when I started really overeating and gaining lots of weight because I still wasn't dealing trauma, but I wasn't the good
Mhm.
girl anymore. I wasn't getting the good grades. I wasn't the stellar student. I was very big. I was 19 and weighing like 175 pounds, where I had this dancer image in my head. And that is very far. Like, subtract 100 from that, and you've got a dancer body, right? So um, it was like disaster. I was, a young woman and heterosexual, and nobody was interested that I saw. Looking back now, I see there were plenty of guys who were interested, but I couldn't see it then. I just
Mhm.
couldn't see it because I didn't believe in
Mhm.
myself. I didn't think I was beautiful. I didn't think I was sexy. I didn't think I was worthy of love. So this is not a nice place to be living your life from. And I had
Mhm.
no spiritual expression whatsoever. I clearly had a spiritual longing because I did that Nam Yoho Renge Kyo thing in the 80s, and that didn't work for me. I just was like, this is culty. That's how I felt about it. And then when I did move to Japan, I realized that that group, the Nichiren and Shoshu people, are like the radical right of Japan. I didn't realize in the United States, they were like all these cool and groovy people doing it.
Tina Turner.
I forgot about that. Tina Turner,
Yeah.
the woman who played the hands in the ooh, I'm on fire video. She showed up at one of our chanting meetings once. She's like, yeah, I chanted for this and I got it. I'm the hands in a Bruce Springsteen video. I'm like, okay, that works. But then when I got to Japan, I had already stopped the chanting process, but I learned that they were this very conservative organization. So that wouldn't have worked for me either. So I just kept looking. And if you keep looking, you will find something. I mean, pray. I wouldn't have thought to pray. That's what I would do now is I would open myself to God and say, I can't do this one. Please help. My prayers tend to be very simple. Please help. So did
Mm.
that answer the question?
Yes.
So, Ali, what role did it sounds like
Huge.
12-step had an important part in your recovery, but what role did it play?
Well, it gave me positive structure, and being the good student,
Mhm.
all I had to do was follow the steps, right? Of course, step 1 was impossible. Step 1 took me a year to even
Yeah.
think about, because I was like, "Are you kidding me?" The first
Mhm.
thing I said in a meeting
Yeah.
was, "I don't like the concept of God, and I certainly don't like the word he attached to it, but I wanted what they had. I wanted what they had." And so I did a bunch of stuff around that and finally got to the point where I could feel God in my life. And that's when I had started Tai Chi too. After about a year
Mhm.
in Tokyo, I started my practice, and that changed everything for me. My Tai Chi group met at 9 in the park. And if there,
Mhm.
check this out, if it was snowing or raining, we met under a shrine and did Tai Chi under a shrine. So it could not have been more ideal for me. It was so lovely just to be able to pray. And I met really good people through that. And then I was able to surround myself with that. And it slowly replaced this negative circular energy of my family, that circle of chaos that I grew up in was slowly
Mhm.
replaced by this circle of love and light and earth energy and self empowerment and beauty and people who cared about you. Right. And so I was able to make that step
Mhm.
into I can see this as a God. This is going to be it for
Mhm.
me. So my God has evolved into something like this beautiful golden hum that just surrounds the earth and keeps it moving in a circle. And you can either join that and have things go your
Mhm.
way, or you can fight it. And let me know how that works out for you. Because I tried that for a lot of years. It doesn't work to fight the way things are going. That doesn't mean you have to be a patsy, because I also believe that this golden hum has in
Mhm.
its consciousness, whatever that is, all of our best interests. And I don't understand
Mhm.
why there's so much suffering and why some people like me get to a point where they can handle what happened to them and some people don't. They just don't. I don't
Mhm.
understand that. But it is true. I also do believe in multiple lives. And so I feel like we all get to go through everything. Yeah, so whatever I went through in
Mhm.
this life hopefully will set me up to have a perfectly easy life in the next one. And I don't know what kind of mean person I was in my previous life, but I think we are all on the planet to learn. And that is how we learn. And I don't understand
Mhm.
why some lessons are so hard. Yeah, but they are.
Mhm.
They are.
I often say I don't necessarily believe that there's a reason for everything because as a therapist, I have a really hard time when people have endured extreme,
Mhm.
abuse. And like, how could I say there's a reason for that? But I do say I think that there's a lesson in everything.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
a real.
How do you approach the idea of relapse in recovery, Ellie?
Well, you just gotta get back up on that horse and go to a meeting. It's gonna happen. Like your classic old AA guy who's just been there and goes to 3, 4 meetings a week and, like, he's got 50 years of recovery. But have they done their work?
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, I think here's one thing about AA. People really get it. AA and NA, people really get if you go out and use once, you could die. People in OA
Mhm.
don't get that so much because it's
Mhm.
slow, terrible death. It's not that fast. But I know people who've gone out and then they're dead, right? And so I think people in OA and NA, those are their meetings. They go 3, 4 times a week, right? And I know I have a friend who's gone to one meeting for 25 years, once a week, and sober.
Mhm.
But people get that. We in OA get a little flip with it. Oh, it's okay. It's just one night, and then I'll get there tomorrow. That's my classic. Okay,
Mhm.
so you just have to keep. You can't let the relapse get you. You can't give up.
Mhm.
You just have to keep going and believing. Like, when I look at every binge that I've had, I was a part of that. It wasn't like God failed me. I made deliberate choices consciously. I used
Mhm.
to sort of like when I was younger and I didn't know what I was doing, it's like, "Oh my god, I'm in a binge all of a sudden." Like I put something in my mouth and I wasn't able to not put other things in my mouth. But I'm not like that anymore. I'm very conscious as to when I'm going to overeat. And sometimes I'm able to get out of it, and sometimes I choose not to,
Mhm.
right? And because I want the food. And
Mhm.
I think it is the same way with alcohol or smoking or shopping or sex or whatever it is that you do. You make that choice. And as an adult, you got to know you're making that choice. And if you can make that choice, you can make the choice in the opposite direction to not do it.
Do you feel like there's something unique about um, overeating because we must eat to survive,
Mhm.
where you
Harder.
don't need to drink or use drugs to survive,
Yeah.
but you must eat to survive?
Dealing with food is like dealing with sex or lack of sex. We are sexual creatures, as adults, we are sexual creatures. And especially if you're already married when you get into program, you have to have sex. You have to eat. You have to learn how to moderate it. And you don't have to with alcohol or drugs. The best thing you can
Mhm.
do is not do it. And you can switch peer groups. I'm not saying all that is easy, but it's pretty simple, like stay away from drugs. You can't stay away from food. I mean, we all wish we could do that. We all wish we could, like, take a little pill for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, um, and then it would fill us with nutrients, and then we wouldn't have to deal with food, but you can't do that and be a healthy, normal person. You gotta eat.
I just read a book called Food Junkies.
Mm,
Um, and it's about the addiction of food, and what the author, it's a psychologist who wrote it, says that you have to eat. So can you remove like trigger foods like sugar and flour?
of course, you can.
And so like abstinence for part of it, but obviously you need to eat, right? So you need to
Mhm.
eat.
Exactly, right, and that's a huge part of figuring out an OA program. And that's when I was doing so
Mhm.
well because I just ate a Japanese diet. It was fully helped by miso twice a day and rice instead of bread and all sorts of
Mhm.
vegetables. And that was great. And it was easy. I mean, I could literally, if I couldn't pack my lunch, I could go to a 7-Eleven, buy a rice ball wrapped in seaweed, some stewed pumpkin, some
Mhm.
edamame. You cannot do that
Yeah.
in the United States in a
No, you
7-Eleven.
No,
can't.
definitely
So
not. No.
coming back, I gained about 10 pounds within the first year of coming back because just change in diet. When I cooked, I still cooked Japanese food, but it was harder. It was harder.
Mhm.
I couldn't just go to any old restaurant and get like noodles, right? Which is it was
Mhm.
a fine meal for me, a noodle with a little bit of fish in it or a little tofu and some vegetable. Perfect. So that part of living in Japan was a lot easier. But
Mhm.
yeah, I had to learn how to eat American. And yeah, you really do have to figure out what foods work. And for some
Mhm.
people, like I've noticed with bulimics, it's much harder for us to put foods on the no list because then that's all we
Mhm.
want to do. And then when we do eat
Mhm.
one mini Hershey's kiss, you're
Yeah.
off and running because that's what you know how to do. So every person really has to be able to figure that out. I think that's where sponsorship really helps. Mostly we want what the other person's body looks like when we first get into program,
Mhm.
and they get to normal by eating normally, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Allie, I want to switch gears a little bit. And knowing you were coming on, I did a little research on sexual anorexia.
mm,
Um, and it isn't something that's widely
it
discussed. And
is
I think it,
not. I'm hoping to
no.
do more about that.
Yeah. Can you talk to us about what it is and how it is to heal from that?
Well, the healing part's great, I have to say. You have to find the right person that you're in love with, and then you have to start to heal because my husband is like right there for me, and he's right in a relationship
Mhm.
with me, and he's a guy, so he's not going to want to not want to have sex, and so I had to learn how to ease into that. So sexual anorexia is pretty much what it sounds like. It's where you think about sex all the time but never have it. It's exactly like food. I think that's the part about
Ah.
anorexia that people don't understand is the obsession is there. You just don't allow
Mhm.
yourself to indulge in it. So I would meet somebody totally inappropriate, know he was totally inappropriate for me, and obsess about him. And because of that obsession, I would shut myself off to everybody else. So remember when I said, sure, there were plenty of guys that were interested in
Mhm.
me. I was probably obsessing over some long-haired guy in the corner with a joint hanging out of his mouth who I knew was a disaster, right?
Mhm.
So I wouldn't get involved, but it wouldn't have mattered if it had been him, it would have been somebody else because what I did was obsess rather than have sex or have a date, have a kiss, right? And when you look at being a survivor, an incest survivor, that makes perfect sense. You're not going to want to have sex because
Mhm.
sex is was abusive and used against you
Mhm.
and hurtful. So especially when all that is operating subconsciously. So once I came to the point where I was able to actually say, I am an incest survivor, this is what happened to me, things opened up a little bit. I was at least able to see those patterns. It was a good 5 years before I was willing to go out on a date with somebody. I
Mhm.
was attracted to a couple people. I actually let them know. Nothing happened. But if you look at your kids going through their junior high school and high school period,
Mhm.
that's what happens. You like somebody, they don't like you back. And you're lucky. Like, I'm a nice looking person, but I'm not the homecoming queen. So it wasn't like there were tons of guys asking me out. I had to be there for it. Like, I had to be like,
Mhm.
"Hmm," and being there for being sexually attractive was hard, really scary,
Mhm.
really scary. So I never really went to sexual anorexic meetings because I didn't I'm sorry to say, in my neighborhood, there wasn't a lot of recovery in those meetings. That's something I
Mhm.
really worked on in therapy, more of that, and my therapist really was like a good mom.
Mhm.
Really, she just
Mhm.
talked me through it, and it was hysterical because when I met my husband, we met on July 4th, for goodness sakes. And I hadn't dated I had, I think, gone out on a few dates, but I certainly wasn't in a relationship. And we met and something like just took over and I said, "Would you like my number?" And he was like, "Sure." And we met through a friend. So it was so normal. Oh, my friend has this guy she knows from
Mhm.
her grad program and she thinks that we'd like each other. She didn't tell me that part. That was good until we were on our way to meeting him. And I was like, oh, that sounds good. Because I said, I don't think I'm going to go. I don't really like July 4th. And she's like, well, there's this somebody that I think you might really get along with. Okay, I'll go. So I was willing. I was willing. I just wasn't quite there yet. And then so I told my therapist, of course, I don't know if I like him. Blah, blah, blah. And she goes, relax. It's not like you're going to marry the first guy that you get involved with. But then when it was time to tell him about my abuse history, I brought him to a therapy session and we had the session. And the next session, she said, marry that man. And she said, I've never
Mhm.
seen anybody deal with that kind of, I mean, but she's seen people just get up and walk out when they
Mhm.
found out their
Mhm.
partner was a abuse survivor, particularly an incest survivor. It was just too much.
Mhm.
And he just accepted it. He's just a very accepting person. He is what they call a normie. He's just a moderate guy, and,
Mhm.
I guess in my heart, I thought I'd, end up with somebody who was in sexual recovery because that made sense to
Mhm.
me, but that didn't happen. But he's like, what would somebody be like if they had a really good sexual recovery program? Just moderate in his approach to life, and yet he has feelings. Yeah,
Mm.
and he's been through his own stuff. He didn't have a perfectly happy childhood. It was definitely hard for him, but he comes from a long line of moderate men, I think.
Mhm.
Hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah, so then you gotta put yourself in bed and have sex with somebody, don't you? And it's challenging. Well, I won't go into detail, but it was challenging for my husband at times. And just slowly, slowly, you just come around to it. And now I am happy to say we have a very nice, healthy sex life, and that is all I will describe about it because I have good boundaries. And I think having a really good sexual connection is critical in a long-term relationship
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it's the fire that keeps you going. It's the glue. Because
Mhm.
especially when you have kids, you're like running a childcare with someone you used to think was cute.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just like, this is all we do is take care of our kids.
Mhm.
We have no time for ourselves. So, but if you have that energy there where you really love each other and you can't wait to climb all over
Mhm.
each other, that's going to power you through. That is.
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
sure, and I see a lot of couples in my practice, and I often see that wane after children quite a bit.
Well, it's
So,
true. And we'd be like, okay, we're going to go on a date once a week, and we'd hit it like once a
Mhm.
month. And then, but I think, me being in recovery and him being Captain Moderate, as I say, I knew we had to keep that going. I knew we had to. And so
Mhm.
even if we didn't have sex for a long time, I would like pinch him, like not like hard pinch, but I'd like go over and squeeze his arm muscles or something like that. And he'd say, very
mhm.
nice. And that's what he would say, very nice. That's him. And then we have this thing which might be inappropriate, but I'll go over to him and I'll raise my arm so my boobs stick out. And then he grabs one of my boobs. And we do that. And then I burst into laughter. I mean, he's been doing that and we don't do this in front of our kids, but we've been doing that for 25 years. And I just,
Oh my
every
god.
single time, I just think it's hilarious, just the little funny face he makes. And,
Yeah.
so you find those things that keep you going. And
Mhm.
hopefully, I mean, most people I know have stayed married. So that's good.
Your novel, As Far as You Can Go Before You Have to Come Back, is deeply personal.
Mhm.
How did writing help you heal?
Writing helped me to heal in the 12 step way
Huh.
because just doing all that writing really, like, there's
Mhm.
something about pen. When I write now creatively, I'm on a computer. So it's like, but when you have to go slowly and push those words out like pen into paper, there's something about
Mhm.
that that's very effective for me. And I don't know if kids these days do their 12 step work on a computer or not, but I really advocate pen to paper for that. So I had been in 12 step for 8 years and in hardcore recovery from childhood trauma for 5 before I had the idea for the novel. So when I sat down to write the novel, I did not re traumatize myself. I just got to write the
Mhm.
story.
Mhm.
And it took a long time there were many drafts where I had to pull myself out of the story, all the stuff that was me. I mean, the emotional realizations are definitely mine. And the idea of being in a foreign country, traveling, having Tai Chi, meeting better people, creating those positive circles. That's
Mhm.
definitely me. But the story is the story. I got to make that up. I was I wrote some essays about what it's like to be a incest survivor, but I wasn't really interested in writing my story. I don't think that's me. This idea had to come out as fiction for some reason. I
Mhm.
don't Creativity is very much like the God thing. You just accept it and go from there, right? You don't Trying to control it never worked for me. Yeah, so I just think you never know if you're in a 12-step program who's got a novelist or a memoirist in
Right.
there. Anybody could.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I would have sworn up, down, and sideways, I'm a journalist. We don't write fiction, real life. That's where the story is. And then I changed my mind.
And then how do you, Ali, encourage other people to use creativity as part of their recovery?
What a great question. I do teach writing, but nobody has let me
Yeah.
teach this class that I have been pitching where I want to write. It's called Write the Hard Stuff, where you sit there
Mhm.
and you sit there for your feelings. But having someone teach that would be very hard for an organization. Like, what if someone totally had an abreaction, right? Then they could sue you. They really freaked out in their trauma recovery.
I took a class at Stanford online that was writing through the pain.
Mm.
And every day,
So I have to build myself up as more of a person you can trust. But I just, I see people all the time in my classes who are blocked and they'll come in and say, I didn't do the homework. I
Mhm.
just couldn't do it. And so then I try to proctor them a little bit, give them a little guidance. Breathe, sit there, breathe. Choose one of these feelings:
Mhm.
joy, shame, pain, anger, guilt, lonely. And just write that, right? I feel lonely 6 times on a
Mhm.
paper until something comes up, I feel lonely. I feel lonely because, and then you're off. And
Mhm.
but, like, if people are just out there in the world and they don't have something like a 12-step program or something like a really nurturing spiritual life, it's going to be harder. It really is.
Mhm.
So that if you
Mhm.
are listening to this, you're probably in 12-step. So keep doing that. Keep doing that. And then
Mhm.
save those, fourth steps. Don't burn them like people do.
Yeah.
Save that information because you never know if there's a story in there.
I think what made the class that I took feel safe was we had a prompt every day,
Mm.
and we would comment on each other's prompt. So the person who posted above you, you would comment, not necessarily critique.
Mm-hmm.
And also you weren't being critiqued by the writer or the instructor, which I think is also a little bit safer. And I think the goal was not to come out with a masterpiece. It was really to write through the pain. It was
Wow,
really,
that really gave me an idea for my class. Instead of trying to
yeah, I
write
thought it might.
something, you're just there to feel something.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's a really good idea.
Yeah. And so I think, yeah, we did a prompt every day for 30 days. And yeah, it was great. And we had lectures, but no like formal critiques.
And if you're writing from your pain and then someone's
Mhm.
like, well, this word didn't work for me, or they get all
Yes, right,
syntaxy on you,
exactly.
and you're like, I just put my whole soul out there.
Mhm,
Right? Yeah.
exactly.
That's exactly it. So, in terms of your writing, tell us about crazy medicine and how it relates to as far as you can go.
Okay, so as far as you can go before you have to come back is about a trauma survivor, this person from an incestuous background who has every opportunity to turn either toward the light or away from the light and keeps going towards the light. That is the thing about this main character I created, Carly. I guess I didn't realize that, but I guess I gave her that from me, is like, I will survive. At one point in the book, she says, she's standing on a bridge in Rome, and she's just been abused by her family. It's just started. And she wants to throw herself off the bridge. And she says, I don't want to. I want to be here for Italian summers. I want to take the summer sun inside me and grow tomatoes with it. I am not going to die. I'm going to get out. And everything comes from that, standing on a bridge in the sun, not being able to extract that beauty and wanting that beauty. And
Mhm.
so my next book that I am coming close to finishing, although I've been saying that for 2 years, it's funny how you have someone read it and you're like, oh, starting at chapter 1 again. But Crazy Medicine is the English translation of the Thai word yaba, which is methamphetamine cut with caffeine. And
Mm.
so so that's what Crazy Medicine is. So there's a young woman from a very traumatic situation, not sexually abused, but a different one. And she also is in her late teens, early 20s. She's backpacking around Asia, completely disassociated, wanting something. And what she comes across on the same island, Kopangang, where Carly starts to practice Tai Chi, because that's where I went when I first
Mhm.
practiced Tai Chi, to an island in Thailand called Kopangang, which is also famous for the big full moon party. So there's that duality going on there. The full moon party, in case you don't know, is all night, every drug you can imagine, sex on the beach, sunrise. That's the full moon party. And now it's thousands of people. When I was there, it was like 100 or so, but there are thousands and thousands of people there. So it's taken over the island. It's crazy,
Huh.
crazy. So this is set in 1992. So the full moon party is probably around 500 people at that time. I'm guessing that. And she decides, she gets this chance to deal drugs. Well, she pursues a chance to deal drugs, and she finds that feeling of satisfaction and peace and at oneness with her trauma through dealing drugs. And so
Mm.
we follow that to a logical conclusion, which I won't tell you the answer. But
Mhm.
so it is about somebody who has every opportunity to turn toward the light and chooses the dark.
Ah,
We were talking before about why is it like this, and why do some people get lucky like I got lucky, and why do
Yeah,
some people not?
yeah.
This was my attempt to address that, and I never got to why, but I started to explore how.
Mm.
And there's still no real answer as to why, except that I wanted it. That's the only thing that I can come to,
yeah.
is that this is what I wanted. The life I have right
Mhm.
now is the life I wanted. And I
Mhm.
had hints of that back then. And that this was my vision. And so I pursued it, where I know people who just, for whatever reason, they just didn't keep going, you know? But I
Mhm.
think that's great, because that means we all have the power to keep going. Because
Mhm.
I can promise you, I am nothing special. Really, I'm just another person. And if I can keep going, you can keep going. So
Mhm.
that was very interesting, writing about what would happen if you chose. It was really fun, by the way. I got to write all these drug dealers and bad guys from Russia, the Russian mob shows up in there. It's still a literary novel, but it's much more genre than the first one. The first one is
Mhm.
definitely not in any genre you can think of.
Mhm.
There's no genre for incest survivors who steal money, go to Asia, and start to practice Tai Chi. But there's a definite genre for young hot women who decide to deal drugs. There's shooting and like tons of sex. It's so funny. Yeah, so that's Crazy Medicine.
I love that, and I think that's a great place to end because I think that idea that yeah, I'm nothing special either, and yeah, somehow if you can find that little
That's what it
that
is,
will,
really. And then you hang on to that because life is going to
yeah,
keep coming at you. It
Mhm, it
really is. It
is.
keeps coming at me. And now the kernel's bigger. That's all, because it's had chance to
yeah,
Mhm.
grow. And I really hope if somebody gets anything from this, it's that there is
Mm.
hope. Whatever they're
yeah.
going through right now, there is definitely hope.
I think what helps me is Kathleen always says that like everything is temporary. And so
Oh,
even joy, right? So even
very
when you're
much. Right.
and so I think that otherwise I would be so tempted to be like everything's okay now.
That's
Like
what I
we've
was
reached
completely
this
like. I remember.
yeah.
I remember being like, "I am okay now. It will never be
Yes.
bad again," like when I was 18 or
Right.
Mhm.
19. And that's a nice idea.
Such a nice idea.
It just doesn't work out because, again, we're here to learn. We're
We
here to
are.
learn.
Yeah.
We are.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Allie.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's just been a joy. I really appreciate it.
And thanks everyone for listening to Sisters in Sobriety, and we will see you next week.
This was Sisters in Sobriety.
Thank you for listening and being with us today.
If you want to learn more about sobriety and meet your community, find us at sistersinsobriety.substack.com.
Are you a sister in sobriety? Then reach out on social media. We'd love to hear from you.
If you're feeling generous, leave us 5 stars and a review and follow us wherever you listen.
You'll never miss an episode. Until next time.